So in these lines here from Chandakirti, so it says bodhisattvas see them thus. So bodhisattvas see beings in this way, thus, in these three ways. Apart from these three ways, there are other ways that are kind of sort of not informed at all with the vision that the Buddha had. This is three ways that is Buddha taught. First, to be able to see how clinging to I and mine is a source of suffering. In this case, not just those that you're trying to help, yourself in the wanting to help. If you are, strongly attached to I and mine, your capacity to help is limited. Because then, and I know that, I will be inconvenienced. My plans will be messed up. Right? So if we have very strong I and mine on the side that is trying to help, and then we are not in a position. We will be very limited in our ability to help. So it's not just that those beings, even though the commentary emphasizes, it's with regards to those beings who are, fixated on I and mine, you should have compassion for them. But it's also the case that, your ability to really have compassion will be impeded if your I and mine is strong.
Is what? Strong?
Strong. Right? Or the stronger it is, the bigger the impediment. The weaker it is, the less the impediment. Completely gone, no impediment.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Then, yes. Then the second type is not recognizing on my end, the one that is generating karuna, not recognizing inconstancy, impermanence, change. That is not the same person, even from moment to moment, much less from day to day, that we feel compassion for. Then we have solidified the situation, and then compassion is not going to be effective. Then likewise, what the commentary emphasizes, have compassion for those beings who are still lacking in an understanding of inconstancy. Then third, our ability as bodhisattvas, as those who are aspiring to be Buddhists, our ability to have karuna is still going to be limited if we're able to free ourselves from the first two problems, but still have a very subtle problem on the level of thinking that there are essences. There are ultimately beings to be rescued. So in the Diamond Sutra it says, bodhisattvas fulfill the perfection of giving by giving limitlessly to limitless beings. So there is actually, you have a logical problem there. Limitless beings are limitless. How could you fulfill limitless? And they say, well, how? By realizing that there is no essences. That the giver, the recipient, and the gift are interdependent and therefore empty. Emptiness means that they don't exist. A giver as such doesn't exist independent of a recipient, independent of the act of giving. So all three kind of like produce each other. So they are like co-arising, co-emergent. They arise together. And lacking in that understanding, then we solidify the idea of giver, receiver, give. Then we can never finish this task. Or we cannot even do this task. So that's the three. So bodhisattvas see them thus. And then I would add here, bodhisattvas see themselves in that way. And yearn to set them free. Now, normally these two would be opposite. You would think, oh, if bodhisattvas can see that everything is illusory, then bodhisattvas can go home now. It's illusory. What do you need to do? No, actually in the Buddhist system, if it wasn't illusory, then it's not possible to do anything. That's an interesting twist, right? Why? Because if it wasn't illusory, then those who are suffering will always have suffering. Those who are happiness will always have happiness. Nothing will change. Everything is already fixed. Then no amount of you trying to do anything is going to make any difference. But because that's not the case, it's illusory, and therefore it's possible, and therefore it's necessary. An interesting kind of twist. I'm not asking you to take it as absolute truth, but to entertain. Here's another perspective. Really, none of what I say, not being pretending to be humble or anything, and wanting you to like me more, well, that I like. But beside the point, really, my attitude, none of what I say is just see it as is one perspective with regards to how people look at the Dharma. You have to figure out your process. So,
can I just,
mm-hmm.
The last point you make, because it's possible, it becomes necessary for you to do it. That's the point that was, like, how do you make that jump? It's possible, so I have to do it.
Yes.
That seems,
Yeah.
it seems huge.
I know.
Does everybody else get that?
Oh yeah, they all got it. They all got it. They all got it.
Teach me later.
Cannot be taught.
No.
You just have to jump. Yearn to set them free. So it's a yearning. You have to yearn to set them free. Where does the yearning come from? Again, as you pointed out, do the meditation. Get that felt sense.
Get that what sense?
Felt sense.
Felt sense.
Then it says their minds or their hearts, however you want to use that word, come under the power of compassion. A more literal translation is their minds are overcome by the force of compassion. And there it almost has a suggestion that there is some sort of a tension between wisdom and compassion. Like in some ways, like wisdom might kind of make you say, there are no beings, no need to do anything, everything is perfect, everything is state of Dzogpa Chenpo, the great perfection, everything is pure, everything is innate, or So there is some sort of tension between wisdom, although the actual wisdom, there's no tension with actual compassion. But on this side of confusion, when you look at these two, often, like, well, if you have compassion, if you have wisdom, maybe. But here, I think the wording is such, for me at least, is that it's sort of saying that But compassion is so powerful that even when the wisdom is there, it's compassion that takes over. The compassion has to take over. So for me, at least, the way I read this is, in the end. So when we started, I said, often we said that compassion or skillful means is the method, they say, which leads to wisdom. Sort of then yeah, elsewhere Shantideva says, like the other 5 perfections are method, and they are in service of wisdom. Right? But here and there in the Buddhist texts, you also get hints of kind of turning things slightly around. That say that, but then in the end, it's not wisdom per se. It's when wisdom dispels confusion, then infinite Buddha qualities are uncovered, and these qualities benefit beings. And that is what it is all about in the end. Not just basking in wisdom and being free, but when that freedom is achieved, the spontaneous, infinite, awakened qualities that manifest for the benefit of others. So then compassion now becomes, again, as it says, it's the seed, it's the accompanying conditions, and it's the fruit. Yes?
But when you feel so far from this freedom that you talk about, in your own development, the starting point, I guess, is compassion for yourself. Is that what's the seed of it all in moving toward?
Metta.
Metta.
Right. Start with
the
cultivation of love.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. The more we have that, the more everything falls in place. Feel the metta, radiate the metta, then the compassion side comes. Because it's just the other side of that coin. You have to go looking for another coin.
Just don't lose it.
Yeah, just don't lose it, But actually you never lost it.
Yeah. You had an
We're
extra,
talking about
you
the
had
key
an
now.
extra one.
Oh, that's an extra.
Yeah.
No, even the same one.
No,
She never lost it.
Yeah. So
We just misplaced.
it was just misplaced.
Obscured.
Yeah.
Right? Obscured.
That's right.
Obscured.
Wow.
It's always been there. It's just
Yeah.
obscured.
Yeah. When we do the metta, and you were talking about, I can't even think of what word.
Shamatha?
Thank you.
Calm abiding.
So you were saying do calm abiding and then metta.
Or I say you can intersperse. That was in the context of Jiden Sungwan saying, okay, so it's not enough to just have metta, but not have weight to your metta. So that your metta is kind of, because metta has that quality, it's that expansive, but you can get lost in like,
Yeah.
So shamatha.
Okay.
So it was in the context of he gave the example. He said, you could be consecrating this statue,
Yeah.
but in that last moment when you're ready to like radiate, your attention switches to something else, then it goes there.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
again, how literally you want to take that,
Yeah.
it's up to you, but a point is being made.
Okay.
You need,
Okay.
strength. So,
Because it goes back and forth.
Yeah.
Anything you read.
yeah. Yes.
But I'm thinking back to you were talking about the Buddha, and there couldn't be a Buddha unless there were people who need saving or something. But basically, we can't have wisdom without the methods, because we need all these people.
Yes.
We need them as much as they need
Yes.
saving. We need them
Yes.
we can't get the wisdom without,
Right.
right? We
Right.
can't even get
Yes.
there without all
There's no
these
basis
people.
of training. patience if there weren't unreasonable people.
And if there were no suffering, there would be no liberation either, right? I mean, that's what we're.
Yeah. In a way, you could say that, but here it doesn't then turn into let's make sure the suffering sticks around.
It's like,
But it's already a given. That's
No,
the
no,
thing.
no, I'm thinking in terms of like, you can't just sit on your cushion and realize.
Oh, that.
beyond
So, yeah.
emptiness and all
Yes,
that
yes.
kind
Your
of stuff.
willingness to expose yourself to darkness, to letting the darkness come in when you have done the preparation. You have to, at some point, willing to expose yourself to suffering. So that you're not just always metta, 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 metta. At some point, then karuna needs to be cultivated more directly. Even if now indirectly you have karuna, but you should cultivate karuna. I would just kind of say that generally my experience, not that I've met a lot of people, but my experience in watching the books that are published, you know, that's all the sound bites on the internet, there's a lot on compassion. Also, in my experience, that folks attracted to Buddhist teachings, Buddhist practice, and not the same folks who are attracted to, you know, like born-again Christian churches. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think so.
We are slightly on the depressed side. That's no, really. You know, we're just on different ends of that spectrum. Some of us are more, you know, depressed than others. So we got to be really careful with the compassion stuff.
Taking it on.
Yeah, taking it on, you know. So we should cultivate more metta. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my counter's.
You know, we tend to be more that. And so then if I was, you know, somehow teaching, you know, like strangely, you know, converted, you know, evangelical types, then I would maybe say, okay, now we need more focus on compassion and less on, you know, the happiness.
Right. I was actually thinking of the people that are, there's this whole trendy kind of mindfulness thing going on too. And so, you know, I'm gonna like use my mind to make myself happy or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, you can do that,
Yes.
but it's also good if you think about
Oh, sure, that, yeah. Right.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That too, of course. Yeah, you know, like mindfulness kind of taught when it's too divorced from a worldview, when it's taught as a technique to be applied in various worldview. This is where Gampopa's words, Dharma, practiced wrongly, can lead to the hell realms. Doesn't have to be literal. It's not a threat. It's just saying, yeah. So it's like, okay, now you are all mindful and productive to do what? To do what? Yeah. To keep an unjust system running like butter? Ooh, right?
or to be safe inside your gated communities. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
that, to keep an unjust system running because you are on the benefiting end of this. And it will even manifest in the form of, but the pair of shoes I bought gave someone else another pair of shoes. Free. Okay. Lots of businesses now, right, have figured out that sells better. Again, not to poo-poo like people with good intentions. But don't believe all of it. It's not just that, we've run out of time. It's somewhat deliberate that we're not doing the karuna meditation as a group. The metta. Yeah, let's get good at that.
Yeah.
Let's get good at that.
Yeah.
We need more of that.
Yeah.
And then when we do that, then the compassion comes. Then we develop the right magnet to attract the right, and not like due to martyrdom syndrome or messiah complex. We want to jump into the compassion. And that's why there has to be, in a way, more kind of, and I chose this because it gave more on kind of the understanding part when it comes to compassion. We need to have a clearer understanding in some of the pitfalls that we would encounter if we're not careful. Questions, comments, more questions, more comments? Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, you.
When I think your first retreat on the 8 verses of Lojong mind training.
Oh yeah.
It seems like you were getting sort of the same sort of hesitations or explanations about those verses, and sort of not letting that lead to suffering with, and being really clear about not getting sucked into martyrdom. So, is that a similar reviewing?
Yeah. And also how these Lojong teachings, interestingly, is said that it was kept secret for many transmissions, generations, like 7 or something before it was publicly disseminated. It sounds very strange, but I think if you kind of think more about it, you can see why. May I be the lowest among all. Enough people walk around thinking that they're the lowest among all and hating it. Do you need to train your mind to think like that? Actually, yes. Yeah, but not in a general sense.
I have a question that's not like no one's question. When you have compassion, does having compassion mean that you're going to do a physical act? Say,
It doesn't directly.
I mean, it may lead to
Yeah,
that.
it may lead. It doesn't.
But it doesn't necessarily, because you can have compassion and move on.
Move on to where? Insofar as the training goes, it's bhavana, it's cultivation of an attitude.
Correct.
Elsewhere is where the action is in the Buddha's teachings. So you cannot just take this and this. It's always embedded within a broader. And elsewhere, Buddha talks about the types of giving we engage in, giving material goods, giving time, and giving fearlessness. So there, that we have to extensively engage in these 3 types of giving. Our material resources, our time and our attention. And fearlessness is basically, I would say, our moral support.
What was the last
fearlessness, which is moral support.
Moral support.
Yeah. To be there for others, to offer people protection, which is, I would say, a lot of what people were doing in Charlottesville. Majority were not the minority populations that were out there. It's other people feeling that, the need to speak, to stand up for the ones that are being threatened and intimidated. So that's a form of offering fearlessness.
I'm thinking about anger, because of course you have to have compassion, and I come up against that a lot in my family. And of course you want to feel compassion. How is the best way to disarm that, or to protect yourself when you're in the midst of it?
Protect?
Or not.
In what way? Say more. Yeah.
Like, how do I give my time, or give my material goods, or give my fearlessness to anger in order to
anger?
Yeah, anger needs compassion too, right? Or,
so you mean it in terms of like the people who are promoting hate?
not even that strong. Just sometimes.
Or an angry person?
Yeah, angry people.
Give them time, give them space. Be there. Not walk away. Be there in a way not to enable, but for them to how. See, the Buddha doesn't go into how. Because there's no way, it'll be a compilation of this thick on, So the Buddha doesn't necessarily teach every single situation how you act. He teaches attitude. When attitude changes and you remain in that moment, waiting for moments to open up, and so that's the whole point about flux and change or inconstancy. And when that moment comes out, you know what to do. Now, not that the first time you know what to do. You do it, you fail. You do it, you fail. You do it, you fail less. You do it, you fail less. Now you don't fail. You don't fail. You don't fail. Then you fail again. It's being relentless about it. I know, like a lot of times myself, so how? Actually, how is being vulnerable in a way? Put yourself out there. You won't know until you are there. Everything else is just, conjecture as to what may or may not be. Yeah.
Well, I have a comment about something I remembered from one of your past retreats that you taught, or at least that I heard you teach, right? I remember you said whenever we, similar to the metta meditation, at any time we feel sort of spontaneous love or spontaneous joy, that we can in that moment offer it to others. So I thought that was one of the most beautiful things I've heard. And this practice made me think of that.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be like a formal sit down.
Well, it's always, controlled environment training for the purposes of normalizing it outside of controlled environment. Right? That's that relationship. And I think a lot of times, I feel that that's not addressed clearly. Then people think that your spiritual life is that controlled environment. Or the other extreme, people think no need to spend time in the controlled environment that's not real. Let me just be in the moment. But Buddha's way isn't that way. Not that it won't work, it's just that's not what Buddha taught. You could take it or leave it, it's fine. Buddha's way is emphasizing the importance of creating these controlled environments to strengthen certain muscles. But that's not the end unto itself. It's so that your post-meditation, that's the technical term, it can permeate your life in the post-meditation. So sometimes it's called like carrying into daily activities. Carrying these insights, carrying these strengths that you've developed in a controlled environment. Now, because it's a controlled environment, in a way it's a facsimile. In a way, it's still not the real thing. The real thing is when you're in that situation. But both are,
But when you say stay, you don't mean stay in a bad situation. When you say when somebody's angry and you stay in this situation.
yes, somebody is angry.
But what
you
I'm saying
stay
is,
there
but what I'm saying
for
is,
them.
but not if it's an abusive or anything.
Wow.
Well, I'm just.
Should we?
I'm just saying. I'm just clarifying.
Comments, offerings.
Yes,
Maybe you
good.
just take them or leave them. But I know I was remembering last night and shared somewhere reading in Pali, in translation, that the near enemy of compassion is grief. And point well taken that as a depressive type, I totally agree that the metta training seems really important, and that like you're saying, we're addicted enough to suffering, wouldn't want to just have a sinking feeling and like, okay, that's my practice, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I remember, Dalai Lama saying or reading his words that the experience of compassion is really energizing. Or, that's what it should be. Or if it's not that, it's not compassion that he's talking about. And so, just kind of thinking about that whole that inability to bear the sight of another suffering inspires or impels you with vigor, kind of energy to respond.
Yeah.
And there's a strength in that.
Right.
And
so they say the way that a mother yanks the child out of danger, that's not at all like, a defeated. The way a mother yanks the child out of danger, compassion is that kind of a.
I think maybe the interesting thing, the place to work there is like, for ordinary, confused, angry people like me, how to experience a little bit of that, I'm ready to safeguard the child or something, but without like attacking the perpetrator or the perceived source of danger, like mixing with righteous indignation or anger or something, just this situation. Just thinking about that, kind of interesting. So, food for thought. One more comment, totally different, but it's about that, is it possible or necessary? One time when I was 22, I asked the Lama about this compassion thing, this idea of like returning perpetually to like save sentient beings, and it sounded overwhelming at the time. How terrible. And I asked him, like, do you ever get tired? This like reincarnation thing, basically. And he just said, no choice. Really simple, straightforward. And I still puzzle over that, but I think it's implicit in the view. This is my commentary, maybe wrong, but like, if you take that idea seriously about, sentient beings and Buddhas, like not ultimately different, or that, I don't know if it makes sense this entity me is going to get liberated, like segregated from everybody else, and maybe no choice,
Yeah.
But he said it too with a little bit of that energy, like no choice, but going ahead, no problem, maybe. I was like, big problem. I'm already tired, I haven't even started.
Some of these teachers that I know, the older they get, the more active they get. They say time is running out. There's a lot of work to do. They pack their schedule more and more. In two ways. One, in retreat. They say, no more time left. More. The other type, no more time left. Serve. And that's the difference in personality. Bodhisattva activity could be locking yourself in the room and out in the world. That's not what differentiates a bodhisattva or not. It's the bodhicitta, the intention. So it's like no choice, no choice. Then the older they get, the more active, either to go into stricter retreat, more retreat, or in the world, travel, non-stop. And because no more time left. Time is slipping away. Instead of like, getting older, you should relax, or it's probably a group coming in. What time is the next group?
It's okay. We don't have to rush out here. We should finish properly.
So, in conclusion, on Friday night we did the cleansing of drippa, and so this idea is that we inadvertently, Buddha taught, of course, due to our intentions, which manifest in physical, verbal, and mental, emotional ways, we create negative karma, we create unskillful actions that ripen in suffering. And so that's, of course, that's not the only thing with actions. You could also create good, skillful, and then happiness. But looking at it from the perspective of it being a problem, that's where suffering comes from. But then there's also a more nuanced sense of that, or a different emphasis where, especially among Tibetan tradition, the Tibetan sense of saying that there are also things that kind of, it's almost, you could say, inevitably, in going about life, we sometimes pick up heavy negative stuff, vibes, juju, or Tibetans call drippa, that kind of weigh us down. And so they say, there are ways of cleansing, purifying us from that. The ultimate cleansing and purifying us of that is to be aware of how, again back to that subject-object divide, from there arises a proliferation of conceptual thoughts that get exaggerated, turn into these kind of superstition, so that we become kind of vulnerable to picking up things that will weigh us down. So as we work through meditation, through mind training, to overcome this duality, and that's the systemic problem that needs to be dismantled. That's the chronic illness that needs to be healed. As we do that, there are also ways and methods to attend to the acute flaring up of suffering. And so the method of Vajravidarana, that purifying with the mantra water of this particular principle, this particular deity, is considered to be one effective way of cleansing. So they say, if you put your intention in there, with this understanding of how these types of weighing down happens, and then you have the method of the mantra water, you have the intention, you say the mantra, you're open to being cleansed, then this has the capacity to remove drippa. So we started on Friday night with a formal drippa, removal of drippa. So I thought it would be good to also end with a simple cleansing. So you probably have not memorized the mantra yet, but you can listen. As you listen, it will come to you. And so more important, just relax and listen. Then after listening a few times, it might come to you. Then you just join or not. Just if you have it, then join me. If not, just listen.
Did we get up and come up to you?
No, I will come.
Just stay there. Oh,
Namaskanda Bhaja Krodaya Hulu Hulu Tishta Tishta Bhanda Bhanda Hana Hana Amrite Om Namaskanda Bhaja Krodaya Hulu Hulu Tishta Tishta Bhanda Bhanda Hana Hana Amrite Om Namaskanda Bhaja Krodaya Hulu Hulu Tishta Tishta Bhanda Bhanda Hana Hana Amrite Om Namaskanda Bhaja Krodaya Hulu Hulu Tishta Tishta Bhanda Bhanda Hana Hana Amrite Om Namaskanda Bhaja Krodaya Hulu Hulu Tishta Tishta Bhanda Bhanda Hana Hana Amrite Om Namaskanda Bhaja Krodaya Hulu Hulu Tishta Tishta Bhanda Bhanda Hana Hana Amrite Om Namaskanda Bhaja Krodaya Hulu Hulu Tishta Tishta Bhanda Bhanda Hana Hana Amrite Om Namaskanda Bhaja Krodaya Hulu Hulu Tishta Tishta Bhanda Bhanda Hana Hana Amrite Om Namaskanda Bhaja Krodaya Hulu Hulu Tishta Tishta Bhanda Bhanda Hana Hana Amrite Om Namaskanda Bhaja Krodaya Hulu Hulu Tishta Tishta Bhanda Bhanda Hana Hana Amrite Om Namaskanda Bhaja Krodaya Hulu Hulu Tishta Tishta Bhanda Bhanda Hana Hana Amrite Om Namaskanda Bhaja Krodaya Hulu Hulu Tishta Tishta Bhanda Bhanda Hana Hana Amrite Om Namaskanda Bhaja Krodaya Hulu Hulu Tishta Tishta Bhanda Bhanda Hana Hana Amrite Om Namaskanda Bhaja Krodaya Hulu Hulu Tishta Tishta Bhanda Bhanda Hana Hana Amrite Om Namaskanda Bhaja Krodaya Hulu Hulu Tishta Tishta Bhanda Bhanda Hana Hana Amrite Om Dishta, Dishta, Banda, Banda, Hana, Amrita, Om. So think of whatever merit, whatever power that has been accumulated by ourselves and by everyone that has participated in this retreat, participated directly or even indirectly, so meaning everyone that has supported EBS in one way or another throughout the years. Think about all this merit gathered together and be transferred, be dedicated to the alleviation of suffering of all beings everywhere, and to the happiness of all beings everywhere, and to the final awakening, the freedom from confusion of all beings everywhere. So in this way, we dedicate.
Thank you.
We are done. I think we want a picture taken.
Picture, but first, we have something to present you.
Thank you.